You keep looking at my greasy forehead and it's really bothering me. I notice you look.
Makeup team.
I'm binging every Berkeley environmental podcast there is. I can't look at this guy.
Go.
Do we have music, background, intro? Hey everybody, I'm Matthew Tomlinson, RVP of the New York Metro Region.
Katherine Strong, Vice President, Head of Sales and Distribution.
Todd Brooks, Regional Vice President of New England.
Hey, Katherine and Todd, I'm really excited to be part of this panel with you and talk about alternative energy. I know my broker partners are extremely excited to get to do the Berkeley model with another niche. It seems like it's a good revenue stream for them. But the big question out there is, what is alternative energy? How do you define it, Todd?
We're defining it as a source of energy that's coming from the earth, basically. So it's the sun, the water, geothermal, and wind. It's not oil and gas. It's not the customary sources of energy we're used to.
Hey, I think alternative energy, if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, coal was the alternative energy. Now we're looking at more renewables than ever before, right? Sun, wind, water, those sustainable elements of, on Earth that we can use again and again.
So I guess what you're saying is now in the 90s, there was a lot of gasoline burning, natural gas burning, and now we're getting creative with solar energy, wind energy. Anything else, Todd?
Hydro
energy?
Geothermal, anaerobic digesters.
So do we have a lot of geothermal in the U.S., or is that more like a Finland where it's very volcanic? And
there's a fair amount here.
The U.S. is one of the 5 largest countries doing geothermal. Yeah,
Nice.
New Zealand's, that's their primary source of fuel right now.
So is it a good idea in the United States that we're so diverse as a country, regionally, like have different focuses in different parts of the country? So maybe you have geothermal here, wind there, ocean here. Do you see that type of push happening?
I've seen that. Yeah, there's certain areas that have more. They'll have the geothermal. Obviously, where there's dairy cows, there's more anaerobic digesters being built in the Midwest.
Right.
Not really in the Northeast. Texas has a lot of solar. California has a lot of solar, but you'd be surprised, there's still a lot of solar up in the Northeast.
Yeah. I know you write a lot of those anaerobic digesters. Can you go a little bit into that? Because I know that's making up a decent amount of our book of business. I'm sure our broker partners out there would love to hear more about that.
Right, so there's some joint ventures are usually happening between large oil companies that are trying to get into the alternative energies, and they're partnering with farmers, and they're building these anaerobic digesters, which are just basically tanks, and they process the waste, and then it creates it into a renewable natural gas, and it goes into the pipeline and ends up fueling CNG cars and things like that.
Is that cleaner than what we're currently burning now to generate electricity?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how much cleaner.
I think there's a misunderstanding about what's clean energy, what's not. Everyone wants to go electric, but no one understands coal still powers most of our electricity. So it might appear to be clean, but quite frankly, it's not.
No, but it's where the source is coming from. Is it coming from solar that is then making the electricity?
Yeah.
So we could be looking at EV chargers,
nice, yeah.
But the source of the energy is from the sun.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's dangerous, of course, about us, stepping into the EV world is the whole ecosystem of EV, right? We're already in
Lithium mining's horrible.
the mining part and then the recycling of
And
those.
the fire hazards. Real quick on solar panels, I know that's a big push. You see a lot of houses. I think obviously commercial buildings underutilized the roofs right now. If you ever look at a roof, there's barely anything there. They could really put the solar panels. So we're going to target those manufacturers. But my question to you, Todd, and I guess Katherine, is how many of those manufacturers are actually in the States? Because if they're all in Asia, we're not really a market for that. Or we see manufacturing coming over here to the States.
We just did a fastener company, right?
Mm-hmm.
That supplies products to the solar panels, right? They fasten them to the rooftops.
Oh, like an ancillary product to the panel?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we will write that, right?
Now let's go to the installers of these solar panels. What's our target market, Todd? Are we looking at pitch roofs, commercial roofs, factories, landfill, reclamation projects? What's our bread and butter when it comes to that?
Commercial rooftops fine. Ground mount obviously is fine. Even garden style apartments.
It's more brick and mortar, flat.
Yeah, flat rooftops
commercial
and ground mount.
We already have the expertise in the contracting market. We already do difficult contractors. Why wouldn't we be good at this, especially the installation
Good
people?
point. Any state restrictions, or are we open all 50 states?
We're open everywhere.
That's
No restrictions.
That's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
So now these solar panels, they get some type of warranty. They're going to make a kilowatt of electricity, generate that. Is there any coverage for that if they don't perform to that standard? Like almost.
No, we aren't doing that.
We're not doing any of that
No
warranty
performance.
or performance. Okay. So we're mainly just the contractor and like the ancillary. So if it falls off of a roof, hits somebody, BI, we would come in and cover something like that. Someone falls off the roof, workers' comp.
And the owners of the solar arrays,
Yeah.
the properties themselves will.
So when you say the JVs, so who's the actual insured? Is it the contractor or is it the owner and kind of doing an OSIP?
Are you talking on the anaerobic digesters?
Yeah, that your big anaerobic projects that you've done several of very well, I hear.
Yeah, it's an energy company just partnering up with different farmers, and they make a JV.
And so you're covering all those entities, like an umbrella coming down. And what kind of limits they usually get for something like that?
10 million.
Where are we going next? Is it the solar panels? You getting some traction with
Yeah,
that?
it's an uptick in definitely solar submissions in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more ground, 100% commercial ground mount contractors out there than we think. There's the rooftop, but they're massive and they don't dabble in the other side of things. So
Are you concerned the wrong people are getting into it? Because I know when the energy boom happened, we always made jokes that we had tow truck drivers now going to drive, tanker trucks. We had milk truck guys driving tanker trucks. Is there any concern that due to this rush, because there's a lot of funding going on with this, right? Energy companies are putting money into it. It's a boom potentially that the wrong contractors get involved?
we haven't seen an issue so far with that. I mean, a lot of times it's electrical contractors making that natural shift over. So it's not a real big shift.
So it's not a big major shift. Okay, so the exposures are relatively the same
Right.
with what they've been doing for the first 20 years.
Right.
I find geothermal kind of a very interesting segment that we're looking at. I was here in Arizona just a few weeks ago, and one of our key broker partners asked me about our appetite for geothermal. It's a great state that's building a lot of new geothermal plants all over Arizona. Bill Gates is coming in with his smart city, right? In Belmont, Arizona, just 45 minutes from here. So what's our attitude about geothermal risk?
We haven't seen a lot of it yet, but we're really open to writing it. We've written a few of them. But yeah, we're really interested in partnering up with contractors that are doing that type of work.
Right.
Does that entail a lot of drilling down
Does.
deep?
It does.
Is there any issues with potential creating earth movement by
Yes.
doing such drilling?
There is,
And our policy would potentially pick that up?
potentially.
Hey, Catherine, I know David's getting a lot of questions from our broker network. What are you hearing on the streets with all of our sales execs regarding alternative energy?
Yeah.
push?
Hey, look, they're all excited. Look, it's a different distribution model too. I mean, we don't know some of the brokers that are experts in this field, and we're getting to know them now. And a lot of our, more oil and gas centric brokers are now seeing a shift as well. We are also finding new relationships where they want to have us as their target market for getting into a new field of expertise. I mean, I've got several examples where we've already been successful and we put them in this business.
So I have two follow-up questions, I guess. One is it mainly retail, wholesale? What's the breakout that we're seeing in this arena?
I personally see the experts as retailers generally who focus on this. So we know who they are generally. There's a large one in your area as well, right? It's going to be a $3 trillion industry by 2030. Right now, I mean, we're at about, I think it ended 2022.
That's a lot of
At
zeros
close
there.
to 900 billion as an industry. So that's quite a big growth from today to 2030.
I know one of the segments I'm excited in because we do a lot of gas station installers, people who built gas stations, install tanks. Now with this push, you're going to have a lot of charging stations, Todd. So do you see that as a good growth area where we can ramp up and write the all lines approach?
Absolutely. We've written a number of them already. They're doing it like targets and they're putting them in on I-95 and all over the place. So we've had a bunch of contractors that we've written like that. And it's like, basically it's any, we talk about those contractors, we talk about the solar, we talk about the geothermal, anaerobic digesters, and it's just not the contractors that are doing the work, it's touching in the whole arena. So
Right.
it might be manufacturers, some of the parts that are going into into these installations. So it's a much bigger universe than just a solar contractor. And we're currently looking at expanding into wind, onshore wind. Projects, and we're just gathering more data. It's so brand new that we just don't know
Right.
exactly where we'll end up in next year or even the year after. So we're always open to seeing where we can expand.
Right.
It makes sense.
With these EVs charging stations, are they just add on to current gas stations? Or are they at the Barnes and Nobles I see quite a bit? Or do they have standalone shops now where they're going to have a C-store with it?
No, I've seen them everywhere. I've seen them they have a little area they lease out at a C-store or at a Barnes and Nobles, Target, or just a little section of a rest stop on a highway. So sometimes I see them in corporate parking lots. So
Right.
they're in all the garages in Boston.
So they could be anywhere. So these contractors could do 1 million of them or whatever it is. And if we hitch our wagon to their horse, we could ride up with this $7 trillion. How many trillion did you say by 2030?
3 trillion. Think about all the exposures, right? I mean, especially those EV contractors that are installing these charging stations at existing gas stations. I mean, you are digging into potentially contaminated soil. That is a huge exposure that, they need an environmental market. They need a Berkeley for that. And think about all the business, our existing contractor insureds, all the business they're going to get in terms of taking fuel pumps out, right? And potentially taking the underground storage tanks out.
You're looking decades out. I like your long game.
Well, no, absolutely. It's going to be additional revenue to our existing contractors, our existing insureds, long-term insureds.
Just my personal opinion, as my wife says, we're not going electric until they have a nice backup with gas. Like you need a good electric with a backup. Did you know you get less gas miles or mileage when you put the AC on in your Tesla or your heat?
Yes.
You don't get that full charge.
How about when you
Can't
haul?
have that.
How about when you haul with the Cybertruck?
Or my 5 kids in my car, right? I mean, what the heck? They're got to throw a few out.
Stop feeding them pizza and it'll be
That's
great.
the only thing they eat, you know that? And that's how we end it. Way to bring us in.
Okay.